This is Adiba Binte Kamal. I work as a research officer at International Center for Climate Change and Development. So I would like to welcome all of you to today's session on Voices from Local Level, Bangladesh Perspective, where we will be hearing voices actually who are from the local level, who will be sharing their project activities that they have completed through the support of CRC, Ycl, and ICCCAD. So with that, I would like to start with Dr. Salimul Haq sir's video recording, as sir is not with us today. So he has sent us a voice recording, audio video recording for all of you. So let me share the recording first. I hope all of you can see my screen.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Salimul Haq. I'm the director of the International Center for Climate Change and Development at the Independent University Bangladesh, and we are the organizers of the annual Gobeshona conference, this being the second global Gobeshona conference on locally led adaptation and resilience. It's my pleasure to be with you here. I'm afraid I can't be with you in person because of competing sessions that I have to attend, but it's my pleasure to say a few words to open up this discussion. This particular session is very important to us. It's bringing together some results of work that my colleagues in ICCCAD have been doing with partners across the world, particularly the Youth Climate Lab, headquartered in Canada, but having partners in different parts of the world. We were their partner here in the Bay of Bengal region. And what we have done under this program is to reach out to a bunch of young people in Bangladesh and try to enable them to understand the problems, to look at what is happening on the ground, and to come up with solutions of their own and tell their own stories in terms of what they are doing. We've been doing this now for a couple of years, and we've got a very good bunch of young people who have been empowered and enabled and enthused to do this, continue to do this work, and they will be telling their stories in the rest of this session. And I look forward to receiving the outcomes and outputs of this session after it is over, and feeding that into the output of the Gobeshona conference, particularly any messages they have for COP27, which will come up in November in Egypt.
With that, I would like to start today's session on voices from the local level, a Bangladesh perspective. So before going to the session, I would like to share a brief discussion about what we are, what we actually do at ICCCAD, and how, especially in the youth program. So with that, let me start. In ICCCAD, we actually have a youth program both in national level and international level, as well as in local level. In terms of local level, Ycl was the first project that we have done or we have completed, working with the local level youth, capacitating them and empowering them through 1 year. And then we have a youth program at the national level where we actually focus on the university going students who have a little knowledge about climate change, who actually wants to work in this field. And then we have we have connection with the international level organization. Like we also have connection with COI 16, COP26, and other youth platforms at the international level. So with that, let me start with a brief introduction, overview of the project that we do at the local level with CRC, Ycl, at ICCCAD. So let me start. I hope everyone can see my screen, and everyone, if anyone face any problem, do let us know. So as I have already mentioned, I am Adiba, so I'm not going to in my intro. So let me talk about the background of the project. So Ycl is basically a youth climate lab, which is based in Canada, a global non-profit organization that accelerates youth-led climate policy projects and businesses, whereas CRC is the Climate Resilient Cooperation is a multi-partner initiative piloting in sub-Arctic Yukon region of Canada and Bay of Bengal in Bangladesh. And this initiative, the Ycl Project Initiative, is mainly focused to promote and build leadership and capacity of local level youth to take collective climate action while promoting north-south crossing learning and knowledge exchange. And the project duration was from September 2022 to December 2021, and it was the CGRF Climate Justice Resilience Fund funded project. So what we actually did in the project from September 2020 to December 2021 is initially we opened a call for application where we got a good response, a very good number of youths actually applied for the project, which was 180. And from that, we actually selected 10 of the youths from different regions of Bangladesh, like from Rangpur, from Sylhet, from Khulna, and Chittagong. We selected 10 associates and we trained them for 1 year. And for the training, we actually focused on we have prepared and designed 6 modules, both in Bangla and English. And 6 of the modules are as follows. In module 1, we have tried to create a glimpse of climate change for the youths, as some of them were from the relevant background, and some of the youths were from actually from local level who have a little education, or education level is only HSC or SSC. So for that, we actually introduced both, we just kept the both English, both language, both Bangla and English. So we try to give them an introduction in the first module, and then we try to follow to share a glimpse of the policies like in our lives, in our communities and in the world. And in the module 3, we have tried to share adaptation stories, like as Bangladesh is known as the lead country of adaptation despite of the vulnerability. So we have tried to share many stories, many activities that is happening under the adaptation in Bangladesh. And then we, in the 4th module, we try to connect climate change and young people and intersectionality between policy and responses. And in the 5th module, we try to develop a project. We try to give them a project management training and try to develop a project-based problem solution. And in the 6th module, we have tried to try to find a solution of the project problem that was identified in the 5th module. And after that, actually throughout this 1 year, we have tried to do some seminars, some calls, and monthly evaluation meetings to get actually to get to know about the youth activities and work from the field level, as well as to assist them or to train them that about our from our side. So we have tried to do some seminars, some webinars with the youth. And due to COVID, all of the calls and virtually meetings were done through WhatsApp, Microsoft Teams, Google Jamboard, and telephone calls. And for quick communication, we have tried to follow WhatsApp for our quick communication with the youth. And these are actually the name of the local projects that the local level associate have carried out through this partnership with Ycl and ICCCAD. So each of them have tried to capture or try to do a project from different angle with different motive and different objectives. So these are the names. I won't go I won't go in details of the project names, but if anyone wants to know more about their projects, do let us know or do drop your email in the chat box. So with that, I would like to also include that in throughout this 1 year, we also have completed some of the workshop that we where we actually those workshops were done physically, where we actually gave the youth training about climate finance, and they have also wrote a letter to COP26 president on climate finance, like how the youth wants to include their voice in the international level. In the letter, they have mentioned how they actually want, what are their want in the international arena, and then climate justice to ensure resilience and youth raising awareness using poster presentation were also done from the workshop. And as of the workshop, the outcomes from the workshop were youth raising awareness using poster presentation and the letter writing to COP26 President Alok Sharma. And these are the few outcomes from the project. And they have actually done a great number of, wrote a great number of articles in Climate Tribune of Dhaka Tribune, in the monthly magazine. So these are the name of the few articles. And they have also done an audio blog where they have discussed about the, after cyclone years, they have actually discussed their role as a youth in the climate change field. So these are the outcomes that they have actually produced over the year. And that's all about the overview actually of the Ycl project that we actually carried through the year with the youth, local level youth from the field level. So with that, I would like to stop here, and I would like to invite Mishu to discuss about the locally led adaptation in landslide. So Mishu, can you share your screen and can you come?
Yes, Apu, I'll try and share my screen. Okay. Can you tell me, please? It's okay, my share?
Yes, we can see that.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Mishu Akhtar, and a VC student of Chittagong College. Since I live in Khagrachuri, I had the opportunity to work as a Ycl associate in the Shobujbarg area of Khagrachuri. I have implemented a local project in that area. The name of my project is Climate Resilience Collective. The name of my project is Wilni Community Lead Adaptation to Landslide in Shobujbarg area of Khagrachuri.
Mishu, can you share the full screen?
Yes, Apu, I'm sharing the full screen. It's
maybe you can stop sharing. We can share from our side the presentation.
okay, Apu.
Mishu, you have to stop sharing your screen.
Let's stop it.
Can you see the screen? Can you see the slides? Okay.
Yeah.
Mishu, you can start.
Okay, Apu. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Misha Akhtar, VC student of Chittagong College. Since I live in Khagrachuri, I had the opportunity to work. I had the opportunity to work as a Ycl associate in the Shobujbag area of Khagrachuri. I have implemented a local project in that area. The name of my project is Building Community Resilience to Landslide of Khagrachuri. Then the second slide is objectives and a research question in this project. Objective of this project is identifying vulnerability resource to enhance adaptive capacity. And second one is identify available network to sustain the enhanced capacity. And last one is identifying the problem of the affected population. The main objective of my project was to raise awareness of Khagrachuri locals and inform them about climate change so that they can deal with and prevent disaster like landslide. And in this local project, I focused on 3 topics of research question. First one is why is the mountain collapsing, and second one is what problem are the local facing as a result of landslide, and last one is how can this landslide be prevented. Next slide, please. And next is methodology. Methodology of this project. First of all, selected a vulnerable area is that Shobujbag of Khagrachuri, and conducted key informant interviewed with stakeholder of this project. Then arrange those workshops. First one is identifying vulnerabilities, and second one is identifying solution, and last one is review and future pathway. Then fourth slide. Okay, fourth slide is showing the vulnerable situation of the project area. Here, the first picture is show how badly the people of the community are being affected by the landslide. And the second picture show people unplannedly cutting down hill and building house and leaving those place with risks. And next slide. Fifth slide is this slide show the picture are located the adaptive strategies of vulnerable community. Most of people in Khagrachuri, they are live under the poverty. However, ignoring the poverty, the people deal with disaster like landslide by adapting various adaptive strategies. Marginalized people are trying to prevent landslide with various type of soil erosion trees and soil fielded shakes. Then next slide, please. Then this project, next slide, is stakeholder mapping. This project is focused basically adult students and women and young farmer, young leaders and locals, NGO organization like this. Next, please. And this slide is showing our implementation process is some of KI pictures and workshop pictures. Then implementation of this project, we have arranged 3 workshops with the stakeholder of this project and selected 10 or 15 stakeholders for the local community, and then conduct the workshop, and there are arranged some food for the participants, and then we produce this project report. Next, please. And this slide is showing that the timeline of this project. Since this project had to be completed through COVID-19, it was not easy in such a situation, but maintaining a safe distance of the workshop participants, ensuring their marks, and forward by controlling various adverse situation like COVID-19. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, like the PI was a little late to schedule the step-by-step activity, and of the project This means that there was a difference in time in implementation activity according to the project timeline, but the PI did not change the original project, and although the time varies, the PI has completed the study according to the previous designs of the project. And next is outcome. I hope I'm so happy in this project. Outcome is first one is increase awareness and skill of the local community due to the low level of awareness among the marginalized people of Khagrachuri. The people they are suffer from various problems in different way. They are not able to carry out any activities properly, and I hope that awareness among them will increase, and marginalized people will be able to refrain their suffering in the future. And my second outcome is enhancing the ability to share knowledge and make the right decision. Not everyone can express their opinions of share their knowledge, especially in marginalized community. In those activity, I will accept my knowledge sharing so that they can increase their abilities, so share knowledge and provide feedback. And thank you. This is my project.
Thank you, Mishu. Thank you so much. If anyone have any questions, please do keep in that on mind. We will open the floor after once we are done with all the presentations. Now, I would like to invite Anika to share her project activities about women's vulnerability and adaptation capacity during flood in Haur areas of Sunamganj.
Am I audible?
Yes.
My screen is showing that I cannot start my video because the host has stopped it. Is it a problem? Okay. Thank you so much. Hello everyone. Adi Babu, I'm sharing my screen, please. Is it visible?
Yes. Can you make it full screen?
Okay. Assalamualaikum. I am Tabia Tasnim Anika. I am currently doing my master's in forestry and environmental science. And last year I have done a project under CRC, CRC Ycl, and my project was on women vulnerability and adaptation capacity during floods in Haur areas of Sunamganj. So we all know that flood is a very common phenomena in Bangladesh, and every year many of the regions of Bangladesh suffer from flood. And Tanguar Haur is one of the most affected areas, which is situated in the northeastern part of Bangladesh. So what is haurs? What are haurs basically? Haurs are basically large bowl-shaped floodplain depression and bounded by Indian hill ranges. In the monsoon, huge amount of water directly come from those hill ranges to Haur areas and causes flood. So due to climate change, this flood has become more frequent, intense, and long-lasting in Haurs, and flash flood is very common nowadays. So why did I choose to work with women? Because of lower socioeconomic standing in our country, women have less access to opportunities and are more exposed to dangers, making them more vulnerable to floods. So Okay, so around 47,000 people get infected with waterborne diseases every year in Bangladesh, and which is very connected to flood as well. And the number of women that get infected with waterborne diseases and skin diseases in Sunamganj is no less. So in this slide, I wanted to show my study area, which is in the northeastern part of Bangladesh, and the project has been carried out in a small village of Mundiata, which is situated in Sunamganj district. My study objectives, the first study objective of this project was to analyze and understand the different impacts that the flood has on women and girls in our area. The second objective was to know the local measures that are taken by women to minimize the flood effects. And the last objective was to understand the wash situation in Haur during flood. The study has identified some major stakeholders. The first one is women and girls, obviously, because the project is for them and to understand their problems. And others are local school teachers, female doctors or nurse of any health complex, and youth association, if there is any active youth association in Mondiata. The study has done 4 FGDs and 4 KIIs. 2 FGDs were done with elderly women who are older than 30 years, and 1 FGD was done with young girls who are between 18 to 30 years old, and and another FGD was done with adolescent girls who are less than 18 years old. And the key informants were self-independent women who play the role of a leader when any type of crisis happens or during flood. The second KII was done with a school teacher of Mondiata. The third was with a youth activist, and the last one is done with a nurse in Upojala Health Complex. Here are some study findings. These are the scenarios that I found in Mondiata. So the first scenario that I have found in this project, that all the toilets are hanging toilets. There are no proper toilets inside the village. All the toilets were built in the edges of the village and above the Haur water, and all the sludges go directly to the Haur water. The second problem is drinking water crisis, which is a very big problem to the people of Mondiata, because Mondiata is a very overpopulated place, and about 3,000 people live there, but only 3 working tube well are active there. So there are huge pressure for drinking water in Mondiata, but for this reason, many people drink directly from the Haur, which is very dangerous, and they admitted that they face problems like skin disease, or women face menstrual hygiene problems for this freshwater problem. The third problem or scenario I have found in Mondiata was that all the women were using Haur water for their household works like washing clothes and dishes and etc. So the last scenario is bad sanitation system, which I already mentioned before. You can see the toilet, the picture of the toilet and the pipeline. This pipe goes directly to the Haur, and all the sludges goes directly to the Haur water. But the problem is people of Haur area use Haur water for their household works, and even some people said that they drink that water. So those are the problems, and I have found some adaptation techniques during flood that women adopted. So the first one is they use dried cow dung as an alternative fuel wood, because during the flood season there is a huge fuel wood crisis. The second is they planted some of the swamp trees like hijol and koroch to slow down the flood waves into their villages or into their houses. And they plant vegetables on the roof of their houses, which supports them with some alternative nutrition. The fourth is they maintain a local savings, which is called Shomiti and totally run by women. This gives them financial support during any kind of emergency. And lastly, they make embankment with bags of soils or stones and rise their houses so that floodwater cannot come into their houses. So here I wanted to give some solutions. The first one is rainwater harvesting. As we know that Sylhet region, the precipitation rate in Sylhet region is very high. So rainwater harvesting could be a solution for them as they face a lot of problem with drinking water. The second one is starting small business through craftsmanship, and this could help them with some alternative income source. The last is floating garden, which is very popularized in Bangladesh, but I think this should be introduced in Sunamganj area or Haur area, and women should be encouraged to maintain those floating garden to support the family. So this is everything I have done in this project, and there were so many limitations while doing this project because of COVID-19, but I hope I have shown everything what I have done. Thank you so much. If anyone has any questions, you can ask.
Yes, thank you, Anika. We will take questions once we are done with all the presentations. So thank you so much. It was really good to hear the adaptation techniques in Sunamganj region. Now I would like to invite Tahsin to present his project on Driven Away by the Storm, the stories of the climate migrants in Khulna city of Bangladesh. Tahsin, can you share the screen?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'll share my screen now. Okay, yes, this one. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So, hello everyone, I'm Mohammad Tahsin Ahmed, speaking from Borishal, Bangladesh, and this is my presentation on the project titled Driven Away by Storm, the stories of the climate migrants in Khulna city, Bangladesh. This project was prepared under the guidance of Climate Resilience Collective, which is a joint initiative of ICCCAD and Ycl. So a bit of background of the study. Back in 2009, May 25, Cyclone Ayla devastated the southwestern coastal region of Bangladesh. It affected 3 million people, destroyed several thousand homes, and killed more than 190 people. This massive destruction led many families to migrate permanently in Khulna cities and from its surrounding districts. So my project basically concentrated on what drove these people to just uproot their lives and move in a city. What were the stories and how are they adjusting to the new location? So this is a map of Bangladesh, and the area marked red is the district of Khulna. And from its surrounding districts, annually, people migrate permanently due to the complex effects of different cyclonic activities. And many of the people who migrate in Khulna city actually settle around the region of Khulna railway station and Khulna seaport, because within those region, jobs like day labor jobs and other easy to get jobs are available there. So many of those families settle within those regions. So my study area was one of the slums near the Khulna railway station, and I was able to identify many families which were migrant families living within that area. So the basic stakeholders were all the migrant families living within that region. These group of women shown in the bottom right corner of this slide are some of the most bravest community workers I've ever seen. They helped amply to identify these migrant families, and identifying them is not that easy. They get assimilated within the community very easily. And if someone gets identified as a migrant family, other families also wanted to get included in the project because they expect some sort of incentive from the project, they felt like. So identifying these families were tough, and these women helped me amply during the project. And some also local politicians, NGO employees, and other employees from the nearby railway station also helped during the project. So now I'm going to concentrate on the stories, something that often gets buried down under loads of stats while working on cases like this. They often get forgotten, but they literally bear the emotions, or what actually happened during that night, fateful night, and what actually led them to uproot their lives in a new location. So first up is the story of Mrs. Roshan Ara and her family. She had the most misfortune of facing this devastating cyclone firsthand back in May 25, 2009 in Shamnagar, Satkhira. Her family of 8 had to float on broken branches of trees for an entire day before they were rescued and got shelter in a cyclone shelter. Her husband, Mr. Mujibur Rahman, was selling fish in a different market during the cyclone struck that region. And he had to swim additionally for 10 hours just to reach his family. Her daughter, who's seen here right in the bottom left corner of the slide, she has now a son of her own. She was literally an infant during that cyclone, and she was tied within those broken branches so that she doesn't get swept away by the oceanic surges. They had land in their native land, and all of those got washed away by the cyclone, and they all became barren due to the salinity of this oceanic water. And that time they had to take the tough decision of uprooting their life and moving to Khulna city. This is the story of Mr. Aminul Islam and his family. He had the misfortune of facing this devastation back in Dakop, Khulna. He had 1.3 acres of croplands in his native land, and he was hoping to increase that land and saving money for that. But cyclone destroyed everything, and he had to spend every last of his pennies just to shift his family in Khulna city. This is the story of Mr. Jahanara Begum and her family. She is an extremely brave woman. She had to shift her family of 7 all by herself because her husband is away as a migrant worker already living in Khulna city. Her settlement process in Khulna was a little bit easier as her husband was already living in the city, but the fear of losing a child during this giant journey, or the devastating scenes that she saw in her native land while the cyclone struck, still haunts her to this day. The trauma has had a long-lasting impact on her. Many problems were identified during my project in this location. The most prominent one was the constant fear of eviction, because these people live on the land owned by the government, especially the Khulna Railway Station Authority. So these are illegal intruders, according to the Khulna Railway Station Authority. So they live in constant fear of eviction. They have water, sanitation, and hygiene-related problems as they live in a congested, artificially created slum, which doesn't have proper sanitation facilities. Even if NGOs want to build sanitation facilities, which some of the NGOs did, they have to face certain legal troubles because these lands are owned by the government, and there are certain claims about land ownership. And so even if some organizations do want to do something for them, they have to face these legal complexities. They have flood-related problems because these slums are situated near the Rupsha River, and that river does flood its bank during the monsoon. And at least 2 to 3 feet of water does submerge this slum. And they have safety and security related problems because they live in a very congested area. I mean, during this project, even I could have got mugged. This area has severe security issues, and they don't have any legal electricity supply. They steal electric lines from the roadside towers, but that's illegal, right? And there's another serious issue, like I said, that they live on land that is owned by the government. So whenever the railway station gets a development project, they evict these people to regain the land and continue the development project. And this happened twice, back in 2011 and 2016. But these people don't have any place to go, so they just resettle right along the railway tracks. And this is a safety hazard both for them and for the tracks, because it's absolutely illegal to build any kind of infrastructure within the radius of 3 meters along the railway tracks. I asked the relay authority about it, and they are aware of it, but they don't do anything about it because they know it's a humanitarian crisis, and they don't have a sustainable plan for these migrant workers. So they really don't have any good answers for it. But something deep positive came out throughout all these reportings. During the project, I had the opportunity to meet with some of the NGO representatives of that locality, and BRAC representatives were quite active within that region. BRAC is one of the largest NGOs of our country, probably of the world, and they did agree with the highlighted problems that we shown them during the project, and they also said that they would like to take some actions regarding it. The local community, especially the local climate migrant community, wasn't that hopeful about any kind of quick actions from any of the NGOs, but much to their surprise, within few months, BRAC established a sanitation facility right along that track that I just shown moments ago for the migrant communities, despite all the legal troubles. So I guess sometimes reporting does work. So kudos to BRAC, and hope more NGOs will follow their path. In the end, I'd like to suggest that these localities deserve more and more voluntary and private initiatives, because government projects are extremely hard to come by. But these migrant children need scholarship, as they're very much behind in education as well. They have to do day labor works besides going to school. So going to school kind of is a luxury for them. So perhaps some sort of scholarship or incentives can lure them back to school again. Perhaps some sort of employment workshop for the migrant families can be introduced, because these people are directly competing against the citizen of Khulna for the same day labor jobs who are against the people who are living before them. So they need more and more opportunities, a bit of push and nudge from the authorities. Perhaps introduction of some sort of small quotas could help them, and small land donation can really help them a lot. And planned government interventions can literally solve all these problems. But that's, like I've said before, is very hard to come by. The predicament they are facing right now is not their fault. It's some of the most complex effects of climate change. And I believe youth initiatives can bring a change in this kind of situations. Like I said, I reported this problem again and again to many NGO authorities, and one of them actually responded, maybe not in a large extent, but they did. So I am hopeful about change. So on that spirit, I'd like to complete my presentation. Thank you everyone for paying attention. And if you have any questions, you can ask me in the chat box. I'll leave my email down there. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Tasin. Thank you so much for sharing us such an insightful presentation regarding the migrants of Khulna city, how vulnerable they are and what is their situation. And the pictures from your field study were really easy to connect with actually the problem with the migrant people. So with that, I would like to invite now Sumaya to present her presentation, project activities on enhancing coping with drought by implementing profitable crops production during the dry season at the local level, Dimla, Nilphamari.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Yes, Sumaya.
Assalamu alaikum and very good evening to all. This is Sumaya Afroz. I am a student of Begum Rokeya University, Rangpur. Welcome to my presentation. The project topic is enhancing coping with drought by implementing profitable crop production during the dry season at the local level, Dimla, Nilphamari. So, the Dimla is a upozela which is located in Nilphamari district. Tista River is a very important river of the northern region of Bangladesh. Dimla is situated beside the Tista River. The local people in this upozela are suffering from drought in the dry season. So I can choose this area for my local project. So here I selected some key research questions. Those are, what is the difference between rainy season cultivation and dry season cultivation? And the next question is, in the dry season, which crops grow well in the little water? And the last question is, what types of work do NGOs usually do for drought, and what do you want for it? So the research question is very important because when we go to field and making our survey, questionnaire survey. So next is research objectives. Those are find out adaptation techniques during drought in local people, to implement profitable crops production in the dry season at the local level, and bring an innovative idea for decision making, encouraging the local community. So methodology, I can do first questionnaire survey, and this is 50 stakeholders for 3 days, because the questionnaire is many questions there. Those questions answer the people, and I find my objectives, those question answers. So next, I do my CFGDs with local people, with group female, male, and farmers. KII with 3 important persons. Those are agricultural officer, union chairman, and environmental officer. And lastly, I arrange a training session. In FGDs, the people share their problems and what they want, everything. So the project main lesson learned is basically I focus in agriculture based project and food production. So when I visit the area, I see that in the dry season, when the water is less in the river, tista, or kind of canals somewhere, then the area picture shows that the potato trees is already died down. So then lack of water, the trees are died down, and also show the trees, the crops which grow well, like maize, and many others like onion and garlic. And the area, some problems in the area. So I have found many problems in the area. Who's suffering every year those problems? Those are lack of food, reduction of crop production, poverty. There are huge problems in agriculture during dry season. Lack of education facilities of children, mental crisis, and quarrel is also faced by people. The area people shared all their problems regarding issues which are useful for me to understand how can I address the project goal. In the area, when I go, I am seeing the women people also working for their poverty, cause of their poverty. So the project outcome is this. In this project, I have some outputs. Those are given below. An article published in Dhaka Tribune and Climate Tribune. The topic is drought related, and increasing communication skills, leadership skills, and increasing adaptation techniques. Some recommendation and conclusion. I have basically some recommendation for this project. The first one is excavation canals. There are many canals, but not excavation. So re-excavation the canals and preserving rainwater in the rainy season, awareness raising, capacity building, and integration of indigenous knowledge. Indigenous knowledge is very important because the old people know how the problem is solving, or less damage in dry season problems. So when we find the indigenous knowledge, we do something for them. Build a disaster management committee. In this area, when I doing my questionnaire survey, I asked them if any disaster management committee working in there. They said no. So it is very important, and invest on new drought tolerant crop. Our agriculture organization can invent on new drought tolerant crop variant which need a little water. So when this invented, then the agriculture problem in dry season, a little water doing well, and not lack of food. And last, increasing engage youth people. When we engage youth people, then we can solve easily this problem, because this is a big problem day by day increasing also. So when youth are doing their work actively, then the people aware also and knowledge gain also. So some adaptation techniques I mentioned here. The crops which need a little water can production during the dry season, like sweet potato, onion, garlic, flaxseed, pumpkin, maize, pepper can planting during the dry season. And the lack of water, alternative solution is shallow machine and solar shallow machine they can use for water. And homemakers can also cultivate vegetables in their houses. Also, alternative business plan during dry season, like they can teeny business like grocery or anything else. Preserving rainwater is also a very important adaptation technique. Those are they are used usually. The straw, up the straw, they cultivate vegetables like pumpkin and others, and they use shallow machine. So these are my presentation. Thanks for everyone for your attention.
Thank you so much, Afroza. I can see a question in the chat box. Maybe I can also see a hand raise. Charles have raised. Maybe you can share your query or question in the Q&A box or chat box. So with that, I would like to invite our last presenter, Mastura. Mastura will be talking about local people's adaptation towards riverbank aeration of Tista River at Gonga Chor Upojela of Rangpur and building awareness. Thank you. Mastura, can you share your screen?
Yeah, of course. Good evening, everyone. Okay. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to represent my project experience here. This is Mastura Munia Farjana. I have worked on my project, and the title of my project is Local People's Adaptation Towards Riverbank Erosion of Tista River at Gongachur Upojela of Rangpur and Building Awareness. So Rangpur is an area which is located in the northern Bangladesh, and we know that most of the river in Bangladesh have entered through the northern area of Bangladesh. This is the study area of mine. The Gongachur Upojela, it's situated in, it's a Upojela which is situated in the southwest of Rangpur. The background of the study of my project, I have selected the riverbank erosion problem and the adaptation techniques of people towards this problem. So Tista River is a river where riverbank erosion is a common scenario. Almost every year, people of this area faces different large scale or small scale riverbank erosion. So their adaptation towards this riverbank erosion has made them more resilient to this change and this disaster. So my project was about people's adaptation problems and how they have solved this problem in recent times. So I have found major problems in this study. The major problems of the community people were livelihood crisis, housing problem, health risk, financial crisis, old and insufficient measures. So focusing, we have suggested 6 modules, and throughout our project, we have learned about those modules and designed our project according to those modules. So from our modules, the modules were provided a systematic idea how to step forward to gain our goal. The module provided us the perfect guideline. It helped us to build the method for gain our objectives, and each module were informative, which pushed us to acquire the expected outcome. Then move on to the objectives. I have 2 objectives on my study. First one was find out the adaptation technique of riverbank erosion of local people, and the second one is building awareness among people about erosion. So my research question were impact of riverbank erosion on the study area, both for long-term and short-term erosion, how socio-economic situation of the local people are being affected by the erosion, how basic needs of the local people are being affected, and identify what are the local initiatives to tackle the erosion situation. So in my methodology, I have used FGD, key informant interview, a workshop, and overall small questionnaire survey. So FGD, I have conducted 6 FGD and 6 to 7 key informant interview. Here are some photographs from my focus group discussion. So in these photographs, I can show you that a group of people are standing in front of a building, and this building is a rehabilitation program for government of Bangladesh to those people who have lost their land due to the riverbank erosion in recent years. These are also some photographs from my focus group discussion. The focus group discussion were basically age based. I have conducted FGD with different type of age class group. Then I have conducted a workshop. So we all know that this project was conducted through the time when COVID was around us. So I have conducted my workshop in a small area, and there were not so many people that in that workshop. But from this workshop, I have learned so many information about their riverbank erosion, how they have cope up with that problem, how the problem have affected them, and how they can get rid of from that problem. So you can see that I have conducted that workshop in a primary school building, and the school building is almost gone because of riverbank erosion. So main lesson from this project, I have learned that people have already made them more resilient and more adaptive with this problem. So they used a different kind of indigenous tools to make them more adaptive to this problem. So first of all, they plant trees along with the river line. You can see in the first picture, they have planted a lot of tree alongside the river line. For this reason, the flood water cannot create riverbank erosion. In the second picture, uses of sandbags. So people use sandbag to prevent the riverbank erosion when the flood comes in the rainy season. These sandbags can protect the river line from the riverbank erosion. And in my third picture, you can see that our river line is protected by the boulders, and this picture have captured very recently. After my complete of my project, I have gone that area again to see the current situation, and I have found that this area was not covered by this boulder when I was conducting my project. And finally, I have found from FGD key informant interview that this problem can be minimized by taking some advanced activities, taking some initiatives from government and from different kind of non-government organization. The alternative solution that I have found from the local people was dredging of river. So dredging of river can minimize this problem a lot, construction of a strong dam and geobag. So thank you for hearing me, everyone. That's all from my side.
Thank you so much, Munia, for sharing such an insightful presentation. We have a question in the chat box for Sumaya. Mastura, can you stop sharing?
Yeah, I see the question. What are the selection criteria for the study respondents? So the selection criteria for the study respondents are mainly who are suffering every year these problems like lack of food and crop production reducing. The person or the people are farmers, fishermen, women. Basically, these people face every year these problems. So I can select these people to my study respondents.
Thank you, Afroza. I saw Charles raised his hand a few minutes ago, so I'm allowing to talk to Charles. So, hello, there is another question in the chat box for Mastura. Can we get the presentation to look at again? Yes, we will share the presentation uh, with you if you can drop your email address in the chat box. I'm trying to unmute Charles. Um, Tanvir, can you do that?
Yes.
Unmute Charles.
Session information yes, নাম কি এটা এই সেশন
Charles, can you hear us?
Adiba, did you say something? Sorry.
Actually, I saw Charles raise his hand a few minutes ago. So, Charles, would you like to share something?
Charles.
So, as there are not that much questions in the chat box, now we would like to hear from the panelists who are. I would like to invite Shohanur.
Yes, thank you. I can't open my camera, but I can continue. Yes. So what questions should I deliver with answer?
Actually, as this session mainly focus on the local level use, I didn't want to have any questions. I really would like to hear about your thoughts as you are working at the local level for the youths in climate action.
Yes, thank you, Adivapa, for this great opportunity for me. And I am from local community and I own the local community. And when I attend the COP26, I represent the community people dress in the COP26. So I think to tackle the global climate crisis, so we need act in the local. And young people has a power and also energy to solve this crisis, but need some kind of support like technical support, sometimes climate education, and also the tools. And Ycl and ICCCAD initiated this program. Was I think my observation is that it was a groundbreaking to connecting the local young people or grassroots young people, and observing all the presentation uh, 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 done by our young colleagues. It's clear that we community people are facing impacts of climate crisis, but we are not just questioning or blaming the global communities. We are autonomously taking the adaptation measures to dealing the crisis. And our some practice, indigenous practice like rainwater harvesting, or in from my community, it's floating vegetable bed. It's indigenous knowledge. And in last week, I watched in Twitter the UK's young children are making Bangladeshi floating vegetable bed project in their climate science class. So it's really, and Ban Ki-moon was said that Bangladesh is a teacher of the adaptation. So Bangladesh is a role model for disaster risk reduction with early warning and also the cyclone shelter management. Bangladesh also leader for the adaptation, especially locally led adaptation and local led action and global connection necessary. And solution will not come from Glasgow. Solution will not come from the Sharm el Sheikh. Solution will come from the our communities and our minds and our people. And just we need support with the technical no need knowledge how can adapt. We know how to adapt, but we need some tools. We need investment, and on for financing for adaptation, share is very limited, and only 2% financing is going to the adaptation. And I heard from scientists or the knowledge IAD, it's only 2% financing is going to the locally led adaptation. So huge gap. In COP26, they are placed for redouble. It will be 40%, but still we are not 50-50. But Bangladesh and our CVF was demanded for 50-50 investment. So without supporting the grassroots organization, CVO, youth-led organization, young researcher, young student, and also the local government. So we cannot promote the local-led adaptation. And also planning from the bottom to top. So it will be not be cannot achieve the real climate justice or to establish the climate adaptation mechanism in there. So I am concluding with some thought to the young people. So I am from a village in Jalukati, it's in Notullabad, and I faced the super cyclone Cedar. And still I am continue my life with that trauma of the super cyclone. So I can claim me as a climate victim. So this climate anxiety is making me or turning me as a climate activist. And on another hand, I was visited to Rangavali, it's called Underchor, as part of the advocacy with the budget programming to increase budget for children. So when I was visited this field in the ground, so these ground sufferings opened my eyes that the mothers are dying for the salinity. 8,000 people of Underchor, they have no shelter. One shelter is there and it's totally abundant. So children, young boys are going to catching fish, and girls are forcing to the child marriage. And all presentation you have mentioned about the poverty. This poverty is not is a general poverty. This poverty is a linked with the climate disaster, and these disaster fueled by human-induced climate crisis. And climate crisis rooted with the capitalism, climate crisis rooted with the colonialism, climate crisis rooted with the domination, especially toxic masculinity. So without addressing the root cause, without addressing the when we are assessing any problem, we have to focus on the root. So when we can think critically and like you can explore the solution. So we are not in position only we are vulnerable, we are vulnerable. We are the first adapter, we are the first responder, and we are taking our responsibility our own shoulder to tackle crisis. And true leadership is that to manage the crisis and compound crisis. You mentioned when you started the project, amid COVID-19. So we are facing COVID-19 during amid COVID-19. We are facing cyclone Amphan or climate crisis. So in compound crisis, you young people, you young guys delivered this project and you managed well. So it's true leadership how we can solve the crisis with the problem solving knowledge. So my last message to you, first we have to follow the science and scientists like Professor Salimul Haq, and also focus on the solution. And I mentioned solution will comes from the local community and young minds. And third one is solidarity. So only this type of adaptation will not be sustained because adaptation has limitation. So and many community in our grassroots like Pratapnagar, Shamnagar, they are not in position for adaptation because they are in many months there is underwater, salty water. So this community needs the reparation. It's funding of loss and damage. So when we are not getting loss and damage funding, adaptation funding, our autonomous power will be ended. So we also need to change the system. We have to build solidarity with, like we are expressing solidarity with Greta Thunberg, we are expressing solidarity with the Fiji and Vanuatu and young people who are dying and who are killing slowly by the climate crisis. So science, solution, solidarity, and youth leadership, not only participation. We are talking about the meaningful participation, meaningful participation. It's time to stopping talking about only meaningful participation. It's time to youth leadership. It's time to youth ownership. It's time to change the world. We young people are unstoppable, and another world is possible. Thank you, Adibapu.
Thank you, Shohanu. Thank you so much for your insightful words. Actually, it was really good to always hear from you how a local level youth can actually have can participate or can have something to do in climate change action. So with that, I would like to now invite our next panelist, who is Afsara Mirza, who will mainly discuss about the youth involvement in policy arena. We always hear that policy is the place where most of us don't get the chance to include our voice. So maybe Afsara can have some insights about that. Afsara, over to you.
Thank you so much, Adibapu. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you so much, everyone, and thank you to the great speakers who shared so many local researches and knowledge, and some of the great projects that they undertook. And I think one of the things that was really common between all the speakers is that, you know, it was with local communities, and they worked collaboratively with local communities, and they saw the challenges, but at the same time, they also found out the techniques that they're using in order to really adapt to the impacts of climate change. And, you know, here comes policy that if that's not in place, that's why they're so vulnerable. And even if a policy is in place, then why isn't it not being implemented, right? So I'm currently leading the Environment and Climate Change Network of Youth Policy Forum. And just a little bit background on what we do. So it's a platform that consists of young Bangladeshi people from all over the world, mainly who are interested in nation building and want to build a great support system for the policymakers, government, non-governmental organizations, and as well as private companies for a sustainable future. And one of the things that we do is that, you know, we started off as a Facebook group, but now we have collaborated with British High Commission and the Commonwealth on several projects from last year. And it was the power of the youth that really drove us where we are today. And, you know, it also gives us the scope to really work with policymakers. So one of the recent projects that we did was with Climate Vulnerable Forum that we did with Global Center on Adaptation. And we provided them with ad hoc research. But at the same time, one of the key things that we do is that we support policymakers in evidence-based decision-making. And in the process, they build their capacity to become the next generation of climate negotiators, right? So the way we do it is that we provide summaries of key documents to the documents such as UNFCCC framework, the Paris Agreement, the Glasgow Pact, also the NDC of Bangladesh. And recently, we also worked on the summary of the IPCC sixth assessment report. But, you know, while working with all these policymakers, we also realized that, you know, sitting at home doing research, you know, on your laptop, it's not it, right? So when you go to the field, that's a different experience. So our team also visited Khulna and Shatkhira recently, and those are the two most vulnerable regions of Bangladesh. And we collected data from the ground on disasters, and we presented this findings to the Climate Parliament of Bangladesh, and also to the parliamentarians caucuses on migration and development. But, you know, one of the long-term thing that we want to also do is focus on locally led adaptation, right? Because we know that local youth, and they have the power and the ability and also the knowledge to really pave the way forward, right? Because we are the next generation, and our ideas, our innovations will really shape the world that we want to live in. And hence, we need so many young researchers. So as a way forward, I think that, while building, I think the recent national adaptation plan that happened recently in Bangladesh, the process is still going on, and that is a national policy where government will really, focus on the strategic areas that it has to invest in order to really call it a climate champion on adaptation. Even though we know that Bangladesh is leading the way forward for climate change adaptation, but I think National Adaptation Plan also did one of the great things was that it also provided scope to consult with youth. That didn't happen for the nationally determined contribution, or the NDC. But I think it leaves a huge opportunity as well, right? Because since we're saying that youth are the change maker, then they have to be included on, for example, the Bangladesh Climate Change Strategic Action Plan, even if it has enhancement in the coming year. But at the same time, I think Mujib Climate Prosperity, which we say mentions about locally led adaptation. So having a youth voice there would also make some change, right? And some of the challenges I think that policymakers or even youth face in order to have an impact on policy making is that there is always the notion, right, that you're young and that your ideas are not matured enough. But I think that notion needs to be really stopped. Like thinking about that idea has to stop, right? And that's the first place where we give scope to the young leaders or young researchers, as you all spoke today and shared your findings. I think that's the first step. But at the same time, when I'm sure as you guys already presented your findings from really remote areas, you see that, it is the problem that exists in their life every day. And it is very basic problems, right? Like problems with water, sanitation, problem with hygiene, and also at the same time, electricity, having poor infrastructure. But these are basic human rights. So I feel like, talking with policymakers at the first place about these basic rights is very important. And it's also important to really strategically work with policymakers, with non-governmental organizations, to also track the progress on the implementation of policies. And I think young researchers can play a key role in really tracking the progress, right? Because if we don't monitor a policy, or even if we don't incorporate the lesson learned, then I think the policy is really flawed. It's not working. So I think that idea of really consistently like sticking to a policy and see if it works is also key. And I would like to end my talk saying that, also one of the I would say the suggestions I would give is that, take a look at Bangladesh's national policy and really see if youth are really included, and if not, find ways like how you can get included in terms of policy building. Thank you so much for listening to me, and it was an honor to be in this.
Thank you so much, Apsara, for your insightful words. I have a question for you. Is there any way or any opportunity to work with YPF? Because most of the youths are really interested to work in the policy area.
Yes, for sure. I think one of the first steps to join, you have to join YPF. So we have a Facebook group where you can just answer, I think, 2 or 3 questions. I can just give the link in the chat box. And after that, we do like a selection process where we give like the names of potential researchers who wants to work with us. So for sure, I can, help in them joining the network.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Apsara. So with that, I would like to invite our last panelist, Sohail bin Saifullah, who is the Youth Program Coordinator for at International Center for Climate Change and Development. Sohail, can you turn on your camera and unmute yourself?
Yes, hi. I cannot seem to turn on my camera. It says that the host needs to give me permission for it.
Tanvir? Can you turn on your camera now, Sohan?
No, it still says that it's perfectly fine. While they work out the technical difficulties, I can continue with my session, if that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Sohail bin Saifullah. I hope that everyone's well. It's a good evening from here in Bangladesh, but good morning and good afternoon to everyone who's listening in from abroad. It's really nice to see so many.
Can you try now?
Okay. Yes. Hi. So it's really nice to see everyone, and as well as hear everyone's talking about how youth needs to be more active, and basically how youth needs to be more included when it comes to climate actions and climatic work. But also it's a little stressing on my end, because as the last speaker, I need to somehow encapsulate everyone's words and talks into it. So I'd like to start with the current presentations that we got. It's really eye-opening, is because we got speakers from Sunamganj doing the projects over there on flash flooding, and as well as we did get presenters on Nilphamari as well. Now, it sort of paints the picture as to how climatic prone Bangladesh is in general. And also, it also gives us a positive light of how youth are taking the initiative to basically come towards and work towards better environmental capacity building, and as well as environmental stewardship. Now, before I talk a little more about them, I'd like to mention one small story, basically from one of my field visits to Shatkhira. We were basically having this interview with a youth journalist who was basically explaining to me how before there were actual capacity built, and as well as actual shelters built, or actual flag understanding of how cyclones are coming in, they used to do it themselves. It didn't take much for them. They basically took a megaphone, and they used to get a motorcycle from their group, and two people would be on that motorcycle going around their community explaining that there's a storm coming in. It's not a very scientific way of doing it, but it's a community-based, locally led method or measure that they have taken themselves. And the fun part was, it's a youth initiative. It wasn't given to them by a government. It wasn't given to them by, let's say, the union people, but it was given to them by the youth. It's their own initiative. So it showcases really well that youth, given the capacity, given the opportunity, can rise to the occasion. And basically, when we talk about climate and when we talk about environment, I realize that a few of our speakers talked about COP itself, and as well as how there needs to be an international recognition for youth. It's interesting because youth are generally never really accepted or brought in on those discussions and negotiations. It's a negotiation about the climate and as well as environment, which is going to hamper or affect youth the most. It's going to come, the brunt of it is already here, but the major effects of it is going to be felt 20 to 30 years later, when the youth will be in actual stewardship situations. And if they're not capacitated from the ground up, they won't be able to do it. So also, I'd like to bring about the topic of how there's a lot of barriers when it comes to this. I understand my previous speaker who really eloquently put that networking is a necessary option, and it requires to bring about change. But I'd like to add on a little more to that. There are a few more scenarios where youth needs to be capacitated. Is, say, if I were to go up to a table and state that, okay, we require to do X, Y, and Z for better flash flood management. The first question that I'd be slapped with is, what is my education? Who's backing me? What is my institutional background? Do I have any credibility? Now, I understand while that is of essence, but you have to take into consideration that a youth, when these people speak about it, they speak about it through actual capacity building. They speak about it through actual understanding. But there is no end to capacity building itself. And I truly admire people who have been on, especially the people who have been on this panel, and as well as the presenters themselves, is because they were able to uphold stories from the ground, actually field actual. These are not things that are predicted to be happening, or these aren't some things that we're saying that will happen in the near future. These things are happening now. And the story about the woman who had lost her family, and as well as had issues with with the current climatic scenario is really it brings us a certain sense of emotion to this. With that, I'd like to somehow try and wrap everything up into a small bow. Is youth work is not something that we should be taking in as a thought process. It's not something that we should be taking in as a side thought. It should happen as the primary action itself. It should be an integral part. Youth should not be taken in as a tokenism centric manner that, okay, I'm giving a seat on the table, but your voices are not going to be heard. While I was at COP26, at the venue itself, there was a 1 mile exclusion zone from the entrance to the actual venue. Even then, you could hear youth outside actually rallying people, stating, climate action now, not later. Words don't mean much when we are the ones who will be suffering. It's usually people who were sued and sit at high tables in AC rooms who are at the negotiations, not usually the people who are the youth working on the ground level. So I feel that it requires a lot more inclusivity and as well as a lot more acceptance that youth are actually people who need to be involved in it as well. With that, I'd like to conclude my talk as well, and I understand that I might be going over time, so I'd hand it back over to Adiba. Thank you.
Thank you, Sohail. So I have a last minute question to you, Sohail. So as there are so many youths are attending this session, so is there any working opportunities or anything that you would like to share from ICCCAD as you are the coordinator of youth program?
Right. Okay. On that, I'd like to mention 3 things. I'll keep it really succinct and short as possible. The first is ICCCAD itself. With the youth program, we do capacity building. I myself was part of the capacity building program in 2017. Adiba was a part of the youth capacity building program in 2018. And we, from then on, have volunteered our time, effort, and as well as patience, so to learn as much as possible. Volunteerism is never something that goes unnoticed. Try and volunteer for I'm going to plug ICCCAD here because that's the question, but try and volunteer for ICCCAD. Or if ICCCAD is not your cup of tea, that's fine. Volunteer for organizations. Try and learn as much as possible. The second thing that I'd like to mention is ICCCAD does a program called the Catalytic Grant, where if you have a groundbreaking idea, if you have an idea that you think would work in terms of climate action, brilliant. Team up with 2 to 3 people. Come up to us, pitch the idea. If it wins, we give you a grant for around $5,000. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But that is a certain sense of seed money and initiative, I believe, that should propel youth into actually moving forward into research. The third one is conferences like these. These are a brilliant melting pot of activists, researchers, practitioners coming together and talking about their projects, responsibilities, and as well as experiences. Try and network as much as possible. Networking never goes wrong. So I believe those 3 are the main talking points, but I can go on hours on this. But since it's a short time, I'll keep it to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sohail, for your sharing the opportunities. Now, as we have almost done with all of the panelists on all of the presentations, I would like to give the floor to Ruksar for 2 minutes to share her thoughts, because before me, Ruksar used to handle this project. So Ruksar, can you just unmute yourself and share your thoughts?
Thank you, Adiba. I'm not sure if I'm audible. Actually, I'm on the road, and I completely feel like it's like a full circle for me. The event was wonderful. It was so nice to hear all the associates give their presentation on their project. Before doing the YCL program, I personally was not an expert on working with youth. So this was a learning experience for me as well. Definitely, I learned a lot as the youth, all the 10 youths that work with us were from different parts of Bangladesh. So it was a very enlightening experience for me. Also, we worked through the pandemic, and internet connection was all that had us connected. And it's just like right now, I'm talking from the road. A lot of our associates through very bad, poor internet connections were joining our calls when we did the modules, and then when we had our follow-up meetings and webinars for the associates. So it feels like I am home, and definitely it felt really good listening to all of you. And I would like to echo with what Sohail said with what are the way forwards for youth associates or any other youth who are joining our call. I think volunteering and networking are the key things that we as youth should do. I'm also calling myself a youth. I'm still under 35, so I'll call myself a youth as well, but not an expert on activism. From the research standpoint or like working in the climate change arena, I think networking is the key. That's all. But definitely YCL was a very enlightening experience for me professionally, and it really helped me with my career as well in terms of learning. And one thing I would like to add, maybe it was not reflected a lot in the discussion, but from my personal note, I would like to add, youth do not have a filter, and I think that's the power. We do not talk because we have to make someone happy. We talk from our heart, and that's our power. So that's what I learned from this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, I would like to invite Hafiz Bhai if you have anything to share with the youth.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum and good evening, everyone. আচ্ছা, সবার সাথে অনেকদিন পর দেখা হচ্ছে মেবি ইয়েতে। সো আমি একটু জাস্ট সবাই অনেক যারা আমাদের প্যানেলিস্ট যারা ছিল তারা অনেক জিনিসগুলো মানে টাস্ক করছে, যেমন একজন মানে ইউথ লিডারশিপটা কিভাবে হওয়া উচিত এটা বলছে। আবার হচ্ছে যে কিভাবে ক্যাপাসিটি বিল্ডিং করা উচিত এন্ড কিভাবে নিজেদেরকে ইয়ে করা উচিত, আরো এই কাজগুলো নিয়ে সামনের দিকে আগানো উচিত। অনেকে অনেক কথা বলছে, থ্যাংক ইউ সো মাচ। সো আমি জাস্ট একটু মানে ইয়ে করতে চাচ্ছি যে আমাদের এটা ওরকম হবে না, মানে জাস্ট মানে নর্মালি যে সবার জন্য মানে আমাদের এখন বর্তমানে ট্রেন্ডটা চলতেছে যে আমরা মানে কি পরিমাণে রিসার্চ করতেছি, কি পরিমাণে রিসার্চ করতে, যারা মানে অ্যাজ এ রিসার্চার তারা কি পরিমাণে এফোর্টস দিচ্ছে, তাদের রিসার্চটা তাদেরকে উপরে নিয়ে যাওয়ার একটা সিঁড়ি, কাইন্ড অফ সিঁড়ি। সো যে আমি কি পরিমাণ রিসার্চ করতেছি, কি পরিমাণ লোকাল লেভেলে কাজ করতেছি, সো যেখানে কাজ করি না কেন সেটা হচ্ছে অনেক বেশি প্রায়োরিটি আমার জন্য। তো এখানে যারা যেসব মানে অ্যাসোসিয়েট যারা ছিল, যারা প্রেজেন্টেশন দিয়েছে, তো তারা তাদের এরিয়া সম্পর্কে অনেক ভালো জানে। এন্ড এই যে আমি তো প্রায় একটা বছর তাদের সাথে ছিলাম। সো আই থিঙ্ক আই ফিল গুড যে তাদের সাথে অনেক ভালো লাগছে এবং তাদেরকে কিছু একটা শিখাতে পারছি যে হ্যাঁ তোমরা ইউর ক্যাপেবল ফর ডুইং দিস। আরো যদি ভালোভাবে, আমার চেয়েও অনেক ভালো জায়গা আছে যারা আরো ভালোভাবে গাইড করবে। সো আরো ভালোভাবে যদি গাইড করে তাহলে তোমরা আরো ভালো উপরে উঠতে পারবা। সো আমি জাস্ট মানে একটা পোর্শনের কথা বলতেছি না, আমার জাস্ট বলার এইটুকু কারণ যে সাপোজ আমি 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 যদি জুনিয়র লেভেল থেকে আমি যদি চিন্তা করি, সো আমি ধরো সাপোজ তোমাদের এরিয়াতে কোনো একটা মানে মানে গ্রাম এরিয়াতে যদি চিন্তা করি, ওইখানে যদি আমি আমার রিসার্চ নিয়ে যদি পড়াশোনা করি, সো ওটা নিয়ে রিসার্চ করি এবং ওই এলাকা সম্পর্কে জানি, অ্যান্ড ওইটা নিয়ে যদি আমি লেখালেখি শুরু করি, দেন ওই জায়গাটার অ্যাটলিস্ট ফ্লোরটা আমি পেয়ে যাব। সো কেমন ফ্লোরটা, যেমন হচ্ছে যে রিসার্চের পার্টটা, যে অর্গানাইজেশন যারা যেসব ন্যাশনাল এনজিওস আইএনজিওস যারা মানে কাজ করতেছে, সো দে গিভ মি অপরচুনিটি। তো তোমরা আমাদের জন্য তারা অপরচুনিটি ক্রিয়েট করবে। সো আমরা যদি রিসার্চার অ্যান্ড মানে ওয়ার্কার যদি মানে ইয়েটা না হতে পারি, তারা কিন্তু আমাদেরকে অপরচুনিটি দিবে না। খালি শুধুমাত্র একটা আমি এলাকাতে থেকে এলাকা সম্পর্কে জানলে হবে না, তো এটা আমি গুড ওয়েতে জানা, যে আমাকে মানে রিসার্চার ওয়েতে জানা যে এটা আমার কোন কোন কম্পোনেন্টটা আমার জন্য জরুরি। সো তোমরা অলরেডি অনেকেই মানে তোমাদের সাথে এই 1 বছরে কাজ করতে গেলে অনেকেই তোমাদের নিজেদের এরিয়ার নিজেদের প্রবলেম গুলো উঠে আনার ট্রাই করছো। সো আমি জাস্ট এখানেই বলবো না যে এখানে স্টপেজ অর স্টপ হওয়া যাবে না। সো ফাইন্ডিং সাম নিউ রিসার্চ ইন ইউর ওন এরিয়া। সো তখন হবে কি যে তোমরা তোমাদের এরিয়াতে একজন এক্সপার্টিস আস্তে আস্তে একটা এক্সপার্টিস লেভেলে দাঁড়া যাবা। সো এখান থেকে আমি যদি আমি কাউকে নেগলেক্ট করছি, ঢাকা সেন্ট্রিক এরিয়া, ঢাকা থেকে যারা রিসার্চার করতেছে অবভিয়াসলি তখন তোমাদেরকে প্রায়োরিটি দিবে। তো তখন তোমরাও এখানে একটা ভালো রিসার্চার, ভালো অর্গানাইজার, ভালো ম্যানেজার, ভালো ডিরেক্টর একসময় হয়ে যাবা। সো দ্যাট ইজ দ্য থিং, যে আমার মনে হয় এটা ভালো। এভরিথিং আদার্স যারা অনেকেই বলছে, ইউথ পলিসি নিয়ে বলছে, অনেক কিছু নিয়ে বলছে। তো দ্যাট ইজ দ্য গুড থিং যে ওইগুলোকে অ্যাড্রেস করা।
Thank you so much. So with that, I will also echo with what Hafiz Bhai said, that this is not the end, this is the beginning. I'm really hopeful to work with all of you in the coming years.